Mark Grayson in Invincible Season 2 focuses on how his identity evolves through encounters with Sinister Mark, Anissa's warning, Angstrom Levy, and his expanding role in protecting his family. It explores how these forces reshape him emotionally and morally. It's a deeper dive into the psychology of what makes a person heroic when everything around them is crumbling. Every threat Mark encounters changes him, both mentally and physically. The season draws attention to the tension between inherited power and earned principles. His inner conflict with himself is pushed every episode, with each encounter testing his emotional and moral boundaries.
Mark's identity is torn apart in Season 2, where he is forced to confront who he truly is beneath the legacy of his father, Omni-Man. The arrival of Angstrom Levy in the finale becomes the ultimate test. Levy, obsessed with the idea that all versions of Invincible will become tyrants, drags Mark through multiple realities, showing him alternate versions of himself who embraced dominance and cruelty. These twisted reflections, including the fearsome sinister Mark, embody Mark's deepest desires. As critics note, Levy's hatred is fueled by memories of Invincibles who sided with their Viltrumite father in bringing suffering across the multiverse, embodying Mark's worst fear, becoming like Omni-Man.
Each universe Mark visits is a warning sign, an echo of how wrong things can go if he makes even one compromised choice. The multiverse becomes a mirror that reveals not potential, but possible inevitabilities. In confronting these versions of himself, Mark begins to realize that he needs to be in control of his actions and emotions. The fear that he's inherently flawed haunts him, as does the suspicion that he might not be strong enough to choose another way, foreshadowing Conquest's arrival in Season 3.
Sinister Mark is perhaps the darkest of those reflections, from a universe similar to mainstream Mark's. However, in his universe, he joined the Viltrumites, which is what causes Mark to become so violent and brutal, and he steals the show despite limited screen time. His presence is brief but chilling, offering a chilling glimpse into what Mark might have become without human compassion to ground him, since his human friends around him are what keep his Viltrumite side in check. As it shows Mark how weak and frail humanity is compared to his Viltrumite side, Sinister Mark serves as a living embodiment of survival at the cost of morality, showing how fragile Mark's identity would be if he followed into his father's trauma and ideology, making our mainstream Mark different to all the other Marks we get to hear about. Witnessing this monstrous version of himself when he travels through various dimensions in the final battle between him and Angstrom, he also confronts a more mature Guardians of the Globe, which consists of Eve, Rex, Bullet, etc. Mark now knows that Eve has feelings for him after their brief interaction where Eve says, "I love you, Mark," and "I should have told you." This emotional revelation lands like a quiet explosion amidst the chaos. For the first time, Mark realizes how much was left unsaid and how different his life could have been if those feelings had surfaced earlier. The future Guardians are symbols of resilience and transformation, but also of lost opportunities. Seeing Eve's regret mirrors Mark's own internal conflict between duty and personal happiness, making our mainstream Mark different to all the other Marks we get to hear about.
Future Eve unfortunately can't go back in time and tell her younger self to tell Mark how she feels. This missed opportunity adds a tragic emotional layer to the multiverse arc. It underscores how time doesn't just change people, but it also steals chances. Mark is left with knowledge about what he needs to do, but burdened by the emotional fallout of futures that can never be. It leaves him questioning whether he should hide his feelings. So, whether Mark likes it or not, it's now up to him to take the initiative with her if he truly likes her. Which is also already conflicting enough for Mark after his breakup with Amber because of their incompatible lifestyles and Mark's dual life as a superhero, which leaves Amber feeling isolated and like she has no agency. She expresses feeling like a weapon to be used against him. Their breakup is realistic, as it shows that superheroes shouldn't have relationships with normal people. Omni-Man and Debbie's relationship also becomes a prime example of this, as Debbie also feels lonely and isolated after losing her husband. Amber, however, is in the right, as their relationship would have been possible if both of them were willing to sacrifice. Her emotional honesty forces Mark to confront how isolating his powers have become.
Earlier, Anissa, a Viltrumite envoy, challenges Mark with ideological coercion. During a tense dinner, she threatens Amber and demands that Mark consider Viltrumite supremacy, arguing that Earth would benefit from enforced order. Even after she saves civilians from a sea monster, Mark refuses to betray humanity.
Anissa stands as proof of how Mark's heritage pushes him toward a path he rejects, showing that his Viltrumite side continues to shape his identity and influence his path as a superhero. Her presence is a haunting reminder that Mark's blood will always pull him toward conquest. It's not just her words, it's how easily she defeats him, how quickly she could force compliance. Every second in her presence tests Mark's resolve to remain human in spirit, not just by genetics. The danger isn't just physical, it's existential. Confronting Angstrom Levy becomes deeply personal. Levy kidnaps Debbie and young Oliver, taunting Mark until he snaps and nearly murders Levy. In the aftermath, he sees the monster he almost became and is consumed with guilt. The violence he unleashed wasn't heroism, it was rage. The emotional stakes in this moment are sky high. Levy pushes Mark to the brink, turning him into the very person he fears. The blood on Mark's hands reflects the same as Omni-Man's from Season 1's finale, where he has to make a brutal choice. It becomes a turning moment for Mark as he realizes that he can never escape from his father's shadow. Yet within that chaos emerges Mark's awareness. He must control his strength, or it will control him. Beyond cosmic threats, Mark's role as big brother and protector reshapes his identity. He takes responsibility for his baby half-brother Oliver, who grows at Viltrumite speed and displays early aggression. When Oliver impulsively kills the Mauler twins to save civilians, Mark steps in to teach him the hero's code: never become the monster you fight. This personal challenge forces him to define heroism on his own terms. Raising Oliver becomes symbolic of raising his own future. If Mark can guide Oliver away from violence, maybe he can believe in his own redemption. It's also his way of making peace with what Nolan never gave him: empathy and guidance. Watching Oliver struggle with power reminds Mark how young he still is himself. The weight of mentorship forces him to grow up fast. Debbie, Mark's mother, remains his emotional anchor. Traumatized by Nolan's betrayal, she's grounded in humanity and reminds Mark of the cost of power. Meanwhile, Mark's relationship with Amber falls apart under pressure. The constant danger and Anissa's intrusion leave Amber unable to bear the fear. Here, loss shapes Mark just as deeply as rage, teaching him that protecting people sometimes means losing them anyway. Debbie's quiet resilience is one of the season's most emotionally resonant elements. Her pain is unspoken but ever-present, a mirror of Mark's own silent suffering. Their scenes together often carry more weight than the fights because they expose real vulnerability. And when Amber leaves, Mark is reminded again, strength can't save every relationship. Sometimes the best you can do is let go with grace. By the end of Season 2, Mark has redefined his identity. He refuses to be bound by Nolan's legacy. Instead, he chooses to lean toward his human side with Eve, Debbie, and his friends. Identity in this season plays a key role in Mark's decisions. The threats from Angstrom, Sinister Mark, and Anissa expose what he could become. Taking care of Oliver, Debbie, and coping with Amber's loss show who he is. In summary, Season 2 develops Mark's identity and personality. Mark refuses to be his father. He guards his family, redefines heroism for a world that fears him. His journey is brutal, but honest and deeply human, which is what makes him truly invincible.